one before that was, you know, the big letters,
It's quite impressive, I mean, it's really good to get a hold of them. Next time we get some branded. We'll design their own people to stuff.
Okay, that means it's probably time to start. Okay, welcome to the second session. We're going to be talking about LocalGov Drupal, and particularly the microsites. I'll introduce the talk, and then we're going to bounce it between us. And it's not my computer, so it's Finn's computer. So I'm Eeks. I've been a Drupal developer for a long time. Originally from London, I'm now based in Amsterdam for quite some time, and you can find me on most of the things, including the Drupal Mastodon and Drupal.org as Eeks, and I've been working on LocalGov Drupal first with Agile Collective still, and also Open Code, which I will then hand over to Finn.
I'm Finn. I've been working with Drupal for slightly less time than Eeks has. And I think Eeks taught me most of what I know about Drupal, especially in the early days. Yeah, I worked with Agile Collective for many years, mainly working with NGOs and public sector organisations, people doing good things in the world, as Eeks does as well. And yeah, now working as Open Code, doing contracting for various charities and local gov people like Greenwich. We'll talk more about that in a bit.
Okay. Talk. What we'll do is a quick introduction to the LocalGov Drupal project, a very short bit about LocalGov code more generally that you can install and use yourself, and then we'll have a look at the latest, greatest thing that went stable all of 3 weeks ago. The microsites, why it got built, and how we built it. There'll be a bit of code, not too much. And also, how it works and how you could actually use the same technologies even if you don't want to use our microsites. So, a bit of background. Do you want to do the first one, that one?
Sure. So, LocalGov Drupal kind of started in 2019, 2020 when councils all have a website that they need to give to citizens, and most councils have the same things they need, like council tax bins. So why is everyone making a different website? It's an obvious use case for like a Drupal collaboration, a Drupal distribution. At the time, the UK government had something called the MHCLG, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, which was then rebranded as the Ministry of Levelling Up, and is now MHCLG again. But they had the Local Digital Fund, which was a great sort of pot of money to encourage councils to collaborate with each other on a disruptive open source technology, of which Drupal is the perfect fit. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore, but it did fund the initial LocalGov Drupal collaboration as a kind of discovery process to get two councils working together. Croydon, which Adnan is from over there, sorry. Hi Adnan. And Brighton and Hove, who were the first two councils to start sharing code. Perfect, nice segue. What they did at Brighton and Hove was build a site, invest lots of money, do lots of UX research, user research, make lots of sensible decisions on information architecture. And then when coming to Croydon, somebody called Will Callahan, who had been there, was like, why are we doing the same thing again? Why don't we just use all the same things? We're asking the same questions. And so the Croydon website was born of Brighton and Hove, and that was the kind of first test case to prove that we can do this. Why don't we just homogenise all the things that are the same? And okay, we can be different colours, slightly different bits of information and whatever, of course, different councils, but mostly, maybe 80-90% of it is consistent. So 2020, 2 councils using the same code base.
And then we started and actually abstracted quite a lot of it. Before
2021, joined by a bunch of others, including Hackney Forest, Waltham Forest, Westminster and Lambeth. And then more funding came from the local digital fund. I think a total of around £1 million, not all of it spent on code, but like spent on collaboration over the course of years. And by 2023, we are up to about 51 websites, I think. I think websites, not councils, but I'm not sure.
it's gone over 50 councils.
It's over 50 councils now. But yeah, lots of these websites are actually microsites as well, which we'll come to in a bit. But they've got their main corporate website and they've got lots of little sites as well, which is where the microsite bit comes in. But anyway, exponential rise of councils adopting LocalGov Drupal, which is great, which also means that actually now Drupal is the most popular CMS for local government websites in the UK, overtaking Java, which is a good thing. But it's still got quite a way to go. We've got about 50%. No, sorry, about 25% of the total councils. So there's still like another. Maths. I'm used to be good at maths. There's about 400 actually. There's about 400 councils in the UK. And we've got 50 councils using it, but there's more councils using Drupal that are not using LocalGov Drupal. So Drupal itself is about 1995 councils. There's at least 50 councils using LocalGov Drupal, so there's more Drupal people to be brought into the LocalGov Drupal camp, but there's many more councils to be convinced. So if you've got a local council, talk to them.
And then there are also now councils in Ireland and non-local government institutions using it, and some more. But yeah, a lot of it has then been how do we actually maintain this momentum, and keep things going. So what has been designed is another one for you.
So yeah, the money ran out basically. The digital fund stopped, and so we were like, okay, how are we going to actually keep this going? It's great when you've got a core team of developers and project leads and the tech leads and some communications people and some researchers, helping to build the collaboration and manage the community. Without some funding, we're kind of screwed. So we asked suppliers and councils to start putting some money into a pot, and it was the suppliers first. There's a bunch of suppliers who were like, yeah, okay, we'll put 10 grand each in the pot, and we had like 70, 80 grand committed. At which point we went to the councils and said, would you do the same? Can we actually just put some money in, have a core team, in order to fund our non-profit cooperative, which is called Open Digital Cooperative. Just go back to that one. Oh, no, sorry. You did the writing. But yeah, there are many more councils than there are suppliers, but all of those do put money into the Open Digital Collective. No, that's wrong. Open Digital Cooperative. Got the wrong name there. That's right.
That'll be me pinching from your slide.
So there's the logo for Open Digital Cooperative. It is a co-op. It's a co-op in which the members are councils and suppliers, not people. So it's a multi-stakeholder cooperative of public sector and private sector organisations, which is quite unusual. I think maybe unique actually. We decided to call it Open Digital Cooperative because this was actually voted on. We didn't want to restrict it to Drupal because we could see lots of other open source collaborations that could maybe come out of this. And we didn't want to restrict it to local government necessarily because there's lots of education, healthcare. There's lots of other public sector things going on where collaboration and open source would just be better and lead to more efficient use of taxpayers' money, in my humble opinion. But that's just a brief slide on the structure. So everyone, all the members, the subscribers put money into the pot. That goes to Open Digital Cooperative, who employs, contracts, product lead, tech lead, development time, comms lead, and community lead, who then organise the community and keep things going, onboarding, support, bug fixing, Merge Tuesday every week we meet and review merge requests and do releases and just keep things ticking over. And it's, you know, still quite early days, but we're in our second year and we're still growing. But no one's full-time, it's all kind of like part-time positions. And there's lots of other resource that comes in from councils and suppliers in terms of contributors' time and developer time and so on and so forth. And so that kind of wheel is spinning, and hopefully we're going to keep it spinning and get it spinning faster. And, so yeah, quite a sort of different model. Maybe akin to the Drupal Association in a way, where suppliers and individuals put money into the pot, and Drupal, you know, the association makes money from events, and then they use that to fund the infrastructure and the community and the support. And so we've taken lots of influence from what they do, but you know, quite small compared to them.
Yeah, so what I actually think makes it different is the community that's been built up around it, which was already there even before the cooperative was there, which was really bringing everyone in, so bringing the content people in, so the content people in the Slack. It's got the developers in the Slack, it's got different groups of people who, you know, everyone who's using it and now who's a member of the co-op is like invited to come into the groups to try and, you know, work out what people's needs are and what problems they're having and these sorts of things. And yeah, I see the developer end of it more than I see the content end of it. But yeah, so we do have this Merge Tuesday. It was Merge Monday. It worked better when it was Monday, but no, everyone can go on Mondays. But it does mean that, you know, once a week we go through all the issues, the merge requests that are coming up. People can come in if they've got one, if they've got a merge request that they kind of want to lobby or make sure that it's got reviewed. Because there's only a set amount of resource that people can actually spend on it, and there's only, you know, it helps to keep the conversation, push things up and bring things in. Yeah.
You touched on the interesting point there, the kind of content people and research people, the non-techies, they all have their own little kind of groups on Slack, and often they have their own meetups. There's a content meetup that happens once a month, and there's an accessibility meetup that happens once a month. And so suddenly, as an individual in a council who doesn't have anyone else doing what you do, like a content designer in a small council, you've suddenly got access to, you know, 4, 5, 10 other people who know the same, you know, they know as much as you do, if not different things, and you're sharing that knowledge, which, yeah.
And I don't know if it still is the case, but to like sign up to the co-op, people, the higher ups do actually have to agree that their staff can actually share stuff and get involved and share code and so forth, which is quite often a bit of a big step for some.
But to go back to the fund and the local digital fund, there's something that came with that, which was the local digital declaration, which very clearly specified you have to work in the open, you have to use open source as much as possible, wherever possible, and like collaborate. And so actually some of that is baked into, while that fund was going, the conditions were set to enforce the kind of openness and collaboration, which I think really helped you know, at that point. I'm not sure how it is now. But yeah.
Yeah, my great anecdote on this one, which is completely not technological, was when the rumour was circulating that the Queen might be dying. The London Bridge Protocol discussion happened in the Slack channel. The content people knew exactly what to do. Andy from Brighton had already written the alert banner system, and it had already been set up so that it could, you know, do the full black website thing. And the content people already knew, had everything set up, and I can tell you lots of the LocalGov Drupal councils were faster than the national government websites to get that done. Because they'd already been talking about it, and it was all there.
Good collaboration.
Yeah. So, yeah, so onto a bit of the code, and so it is a distribution. You can go, and there's very good docs. There's very good documentation on. To install it, you can just do a composer, create project. It will pull down the standard project layout. It's then a profile. At the moment, there is virtually nothing in the profile, so we should be able to turn it into a recipe. Because we've got this little code, it's basically installing separate modules. But you don't have to use it as a distribution. It's also on Drupal.org. We intend to move all the stuff off Drupal.org, but
No, to
Drupal.org. But at the moment, moment, most of it's on GitHub because it was just more convenient at the time. And we've kind of been waiting on the full GitLab integration to make it possible to do everything. But there's a definite push within the community to get like all the credits and things that you can get on Drupal.org.
Yeah. GitLab.
So, can I ask this? So that's people in the councils wanting to see contribution credits.
Suppliers more than councils, but
suppliers
as well.
more than the councils, right? Okay.
Yeah, but we're trying to educate the people at the councils as well, and
That's
trying
cool.
to encourage the councils to get an account on Drupal.org at least, and developers. But as the sort of business model evolves around the subscriptions, we're looking again towards the Drupal Association influence and inspiration, and that whole contributions-based reward system that the DA are using really well to inspire more contribution. We're going to try and do something similar.
Yeah.
In order to do that, it would be much more helpful if all of our stuff was on Drupal.org, so that all of the contributions can be measured with those same metrics. And then they count towards LocalGov Drupal, and they also count towards Drupal.org. So you're kind of getting, as a supplier, you're getting double credits, potentially double benefits. Just issue queues. No one likes the Drupal.org issue queues. When they're used to like GitLab or GitHub, you know. And so that's going to be changing within the next few months, we think, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I did say it is a distribution, but it's actually built out of a stack load of modules. And you can install most of them quite separately. So if you really like the government design system step-by-step plan, I think there's quite a lot of admins work was on that one. You can install, it's the step-by-step thing that it shows the circles on the side, and you can see that you're moving through the process and the forms and things. You can install that on your own website and you can have it. I've got a link. If you've never looked at the government design system, descriptions about their, guidance for how you should present stuff, how you should do form fields and things like that, it's really good. There's a link to it at the end. And they are now starting to put more links to the research that they've done that then backs up why it's a really good idea to have a huge square box with a big tick in it, things like that. Other ones of note, I should mention publications is on there. So publications is one that came from a requirement from a council, and the council had money to pay for it, I'm pretty sure, and then Chicken, which is Rupert and Justine Koala, and a couple of other people then developed and were able to contribute to the community. So that came out of the decision, but they did talk to other councils about what might be useful or required.
And this is like the PDF killer, right? Councils have lots of PDFs, they're not accessible, they're useless. They need to convert that content into HTML-based, accessible, linkable applications, and that's what that module does.
And so I mentioned the Alert Banner, which came from Brighton. Croydon's been working on the web forms. Different councils are putting stuff in addition to the stuff that's been worked on. And some of the stuff is going back up to Drupal.org on its own, so like the Geo entity is actually now just a module on Drupal.org that's completely separate from LocalGov Drupal. And really the Alert Banner should be, but
no dependencies on anything else in LocalGov Drupal.
and it's really useful, if you want an alert banner that you see once you click it away, it remembers the fact you've clicked it away. You can place it on different pages because it has conditions. You can have different types of banners because it's its own entity type, you can make multiple bundles. All that, really useful. Trouble is, it's still got LocalGov _ namespace, and the pain and agony of getting it out of the LocalGov Geo module when we put it up on Drupal.org. I don't know if it's going to happen again. It will probably keep LocalGov _ on it.
Naming things is really difficult. Like everyone says that, but I keep being reminded how difficult it is in reality.
Okay. So that was all the things that are being built, and there's more stuff coming along the way. But what came next was the microsites. So it was literally asked to the councils, what is the other thing that we really, really need, and they're answered, you know, we just have
billions of microsites. Some councils do have up to 100 microsites, and in fact other organisations do as well, from talking about like universities and you know, charities and stuff. But you know, up to 100 microsites on different things, on Java, Wix, WordPress, you know, like, and of course once you've got that, no one knows who's got the keys, staff come and go, suppliers come and go, you end up with security issues, content that's wrong, you know, embarrassing things that, you know, yeah, it's a nightmare. I'm sure we've all been there. So, can we have a LocalGov Drupal system with all the stuff you do? Maybe not all of it, but can we have a microsite system so we can run all our microsites? So that was, while we still had funding at this point, that was the kind of, we had like Discovery Alpha Beta live and then microsites. So they gave us some more money to develop something for this.
And accessibility is another big one, particularly for the local councils, because they're legally required, and not a lot of these microsites are actually being checked, and all the rest of it is just a given.
Especially if it's 10 years out of date.
So yeah, it's kind of useful to get an idea of the different types of microsites they're getting, and these are the ones that are actually getting built. So like the events, or like summer festivals, Christmas market, they're also ones that need to look less council branded.
A bit more promotional, a bit more imagey, a bit more, you know, like, yeah, maybe less than government DDS kind of styles, but, and also like campaigning for particular things like fostering, like you're really trying to engage someone to like get involved in fostering, you're recruiting people, you know, it's a promotional, you know, quite different from a lot of the other content on council websites. So often branding and look and feel is yeah.
And they're also usually quite often have different editorial groups, so there's different permissions, different people can access it. The fostering ones I've noticed are quite often across councils, so they're sharing it with multiple councils, so you've got again different users. So that's
So yeah, like just think about the user needs and the two different angles of user needs. Like as a department, like maybe fostering or whatever, you want ownership over it, you want to be able to control your content, you want lots of images, you want to be able to, you know, kind of like get creative about it. You want people, you want layout options, they do, you know, they want control over maybe over their colours and that kind of stuff. But then, as a council, you've already mentioned like the consistency of accessibility of, I think it's the next slide. Google Analytics, even on all sites, that's one big thing, that they want to be able to see who's using which sites. And so, yeah, obviously GDPR, people consent, legal. Sometimes you want lots of sites that all look the same and people can't control the differences as well. And sometimes you want sites where people can control the differences. So there's these kind of like parallel use cases there. But control is, you know, the important part, the flexibility.
But yeah, the first thing that actually got done was not code at all. It was what got called the proposition.
Or should I have a microsite or not?
And this is up online, but it's a set of questions about maybe you shouldn't.
Which came from Croydon primarily, isn't it? Tom Steele at Croydon, I think, was the instigator of all this, and you know, like spent a lot of time like doing research and different people get involved in the community. But yeah, it's about content strategy, right? Like, where should this piece of content live? And so you ask all the questions. Who's it for? What research is it? You know, but all the standard, which I guess as web professionals we're probably relatively familiar with, but maybe as people in councils who just want a website, you know, and think I can't have what I want on the main site, so therefore I need a microsite. Maybe that's not always the answer. So there's this set of questions which we encourage people to read through, called the proposition, which is up on the docs site, and out of the end of that, maybe it's on the main site, maybe it's on like a subsection of the main site, maybe it is on a microsite, or maybe it's something completely different. So just really encouraging people to think about the strategy there, which again is hugely valuable, because I think it's not always you want to have yet another microsite.
And yeah, it's up on the doc site, and it's actually quite a useful thing that you can also just take for your own sites, because it does think through. Okay, so what we built, well, this is what lots of people built. There's a whole set of, you get somewhere there, there's a certain amount of standardisation, but there's a lot of things that you can keep changing. And I think we'll have a live demo of some of the greater variations coming on. But how we built it. This is the brief codey bit. The story is also more important than the specific code. So if you don't understand some of the technical terms I'm just about to throw at you in the next 5 minutes. What we thought, what looked at it, and I talked about those user permissions and all the rest of it. It's sort of like, well, there is actually a module out there that links domain, which is a popular module that will change things, settings or whatever on your site based on what domain you've gone to. So you can actually put lots of different domains at the same Drupal site. And there's also a group module, which is really good at handling permissions and access and all the rest of it. And there was a domain group module, but it was very much based around group 1, and it was very much based on node access, which means you've got a node access table, and you can say which, so you could end up saying which group, which node is on which domain, basically. But that's not really what you want, because you want all the things to be specific to the microsite, like the taxonomy terms or whatever. Sometimes people then say, no, actually we want to share these across. We can do that as well, but you know, it's an added complication. But yeah, so it's node access. So contribute to the community. I thought what we'll do is we'll spend some time developing the next version on top of what they'd already built of this domain, group domain module. So started writing entity access hooks to do this. But of course, once you've got entity access, you've also got views. So then you have to do a query alter on the views. I thought I was being really clever and managed to make an inner join basically on the group when it makes the query, which makes it one really simple query to lock all the content to the group. You know, but it's quite a thing to do. And it worked, and we had lots of sites out there. Like, how many were there by this point?
I don't know, but quite a lot.
Yeah.
20, maybe 15.
So they're in production, they're out there.
Even though we're still officially in like alpha.
Alpha,
yeah. So yeah, we were aware that there are people relying on our code, and we didn't want to break their sites.
Yeah, but Christian is cleverer than I am, and he had the same problem for Factorial, for one of their big clients, a name I do not know, who wanted the similar thing, and he thought of the similar thing, but he generalised it much further out.
And he's also the developer of Group Module. And yeah,
He's a good guy actually.
he's lovely and clever and funny.
And actually also very friendly and will explain what's going on and all the rest of it. So, so what he'd done was is developed a thing that uses the calculator, I will describe it vaguely, and I'll explain why it's really important to you all in Drupal by the end of this, which means all this entity alter stuff that I was doing that was, working, was completely unnecessary. So in the group module already in 2 and 3 was this idea of a permissions calculator. And you can alter the permissions. And what he's done in the group sites module, which is not specific to domain, it has an active version for domain, but it could just be path. It can be any context that you can imagine you can lock to a domain. You can lock to a group.
No one's sorry, just to team over it. No one tell Joz this, alright? Don't tell Joz.
And within his group sites thing, he did something that I couldn't work out how to do, which was get the permissions to alter specifically for all the different things. So we can just use his code. But we did have to kind of go, okay, I've just developed and I've spent all this time making this really good, and it's working and it's functional and it's out there, but this is better, and if we might as well change now.
If we don't do it now, it's just going to get bigger and more people having more sites, and the technical debt would have grown.
So there's a whole load of things. But it does mean I can, on our control site that you saw, but anyway, on our control site, I can literally say what permissions happen on that site as well, and I can just get rid of all the other permissions that just don't exist. It's marvellous. But the reason why this is really interesting is because all that underlying stuff that was in group module is now in core. And this was where it went in, and how it works. Now I'm just going to give you a vague idea about it because it effectively uses cache tags. So once you've calculated the permissions, it puts cache tags on it. And so you can vary, if you can make a cache tag, you can vary your permissions based on that. So if it's domain, you can add that cache tag to the calculated permissions, and that's how I can remove all the permissions except the ones I want, no matter what the permissions matrix says. If you can create a calculator and put a cache tag on it, that's how it works. And just for so that's the documentation. For those people who do want to know, so the easiest one to look at in Drupal core is user 1. You can now switch user 1 off. You can just disable this. It's just a plugin. And it calculates the permissions. It says if user account ID is 1, you return the fact that it's an admin user and they get all the permissions. And it adds the cache tag user.isSuperUser. And that is how in Drupal core now that's done. And that's how it makes it really easy to do all the microsite permissions and all the rest of it, because you just add the cache tag for the context. So that's why it was a good idea to change. Even if it was a bit late. Okay, I will skip over the rest of that. And then, so that's the user role one, it's also in core. So, that said, we've built something that just rolls out of the box that you can do microsites with. How do you use it on the front end? So we built it with the concept of a control site and microsites. These are your slides.
So, yes, important to know it's a single DB, it's a single Drupal install. It's one set of code, one database, with multiple domains pointing at it. And once you set up a microsite, which is a group, then those domains will respond to that group. So you log into the control site as a controller user, and the idea is that that controller literally just manages the creation of microsites and the creation of user accounts and granting user permissions to access those microsites and use them either as an admin with a few more bits of functionality or just as an editor with kind of content control. What have we got here? We're creating a microsite. No.
This is just stuff on the control site.
So this is the control site. So this is the controller.
You're going to show this off in a moment anyway.
Okay.
I think. Or not. Anyway. So to create a microsite, and I have just recorded this. That's the domain with nothing on it. So of course it just goes to the control site and says you need to log in. and it will keep on running in the background. Yep.
So the control site is basically empty. So your main council site would be a microsite.
No.
We've kind of avoided that.
So we first of all, people already have their main council site, and that's one Drupal install. And then LocalGov microsites is a separate Drupal install to manage all your microsites. So we try to just keep that separate. I mean, it's possible, but it's just asking for trouble, I think.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
All in one box. They kind of serve different user needs and different
Yeah.
use cases, you know, for the most part.
But yeah, so it's running through again. So as you probably saw, it's literally just a two-step form. You put in the domain, and it then populates the microsite with some sample content, and it's up and running, and it's a group. So you just add a user into. So like this stuff is in fact configuring the domain content config entity. So yeah. Anyway, so there we go, and there's simply adding member, so that's the group module bit of it. You can just add a member into it. And give them role, and then someone can log in, and then they can start doing crazy things with it.
Yeah, mainly around the appearance. So again, just back to kind of using these in the research, a lot of people who are using these sites don't have access to a Drupal developer or a front ender or a theme or anything. So the idea was we want to be able to change up branding, colours, fonts, you know, header, footer, logos, and you know, as well as the layout and content, we want to have a different look and feel, and we want to be able to do that without developer intervention or without further deployments.
Is it playing yet? Is it playing? Oh, well, play it on there. Oh, it's there on there. I was going to play it in the background, but you want to show it off?
I will.
It's up there. I'll leave this in the background. Huh? It is playing, but it's so even when you record it, it doesn't necessarily work. But that was me scrolling through the page and then going to the admin page of it, selecting some crazy colours, and it would have.
We can have it.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other one was content, and this one, there isn't a pre-prepared one, but it's.
We'll have virtually.
Yeah, so, but again, the user story is basically that you want the content editors to have quite a lot of control over how their content is displayed and so forth. So, do you want to switch to the live demo mode?
Whilst that's happening, a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
On the microsites, did you find that most councils had them set up as subdomains, or were they just a random path, effectively?
No, so most of them are domains. Quite often they're subdomains. More often they're actually just a completely different domain. I think one of the reasons for this might actually just be because .gov.uk domains are a real pain to get authorised and all the rest of it, and IT departments or the ops departments are somewhat reticent about it. Plus, quite often they just wanted different branding, so they have a whole different domain. But yeah, if the things like that are more council-y tend to, so like the directories for the local offer, which is the how do you describe it? Children's services, the things that statutorily must be provided and so forth. They're quite often subdomains. But when it's the market or something like that, quite often it just has its own domain.
So DDEV locally, the project will come with a DDEV setup to help people get set up and try a bunch of people domains. We're on the microsite, we're on the control site at the moment, so logged in as the controller. This is important. It's important that you are a user with the controller and not user one. We don't want to use user one anymore. Why?
Because user one, it means nothing in this context.
Because of some of the stuff you just saw.
Group module. If you're user one and you do not have permission to the content or the group, you just will not have access to it because it doesn't look at that. It's super.
So if I log in here as user 1, I don't see any microsites, which is still confuses me, even though I know. Anyway, so we've got like 5 microsites here, little 6 or whatever. If I click on edit on one of these, then we can see the main things that matter, which is the members and some of the site settings. So I've added an admin one as an admin and an editor with no role to this microsite. Let's go across to the domain, where I'm currently logged in as admin1. In fact, let's just log out and look at log in as the editor first, because that's maybe just so the editor logs in, and you can see the kind of content on the homepage is stuff I built out to look at a fictional University of Scarthurst page. If we go to microsite administration, they can see their content, they can see their media and menu items and nothing else. So very much just around content management, which out of the box we use layout paragraphs with some other fields on a content type. So if you haven't seen layout paragraphs, it's kind of like layout builder, but just in a paragraph, using some of the same layout API or whatever the word is. But we've got some other sort of, like a featured banner image paragraph at the top as well, and title and summary shenanigans like that. But the layout paragraphs, when we were testing it in the early days, was really exactly what content designers wanted. They were used to the Drupal form and the Drupal content, editing it, going to a content form, but they wanted to see their layout and have some control of it in there. That may be changing. I'd be interested to find out and do some more research. But you can add like a sort of layout section, pop in an image into one side with or without a caption. That just actually not work. Pop in some text. Pop an image in again. That's how it work. So yeah, they can build out their content. And so in this case, an admin would have already set the look and feel, and so the content editors don't need to worry about that, and they can start to build out their pages. Let's just log out and log in as the admin now, and we'll see some of the other things that an admin can do. First of all, they can invite more people to it, so they can add existing users, or you can actually invite them, send an email to please click here, sign up to an account, and then become invited to this site.
Yes, it is just G-invite.
Yeah, I mean, like 90% of this is just weaving together existing modules with Drupal code, which is the important bit, just making it work. But if we go over to site settings, then as an admin we can see there's a few things here. We can change the name and the front page. We can also override the theme. At the moment, the LocalGov microsite base theme gives us some flexibility in terms of changing colours, and we'll see that in a second. But if you wanted to just have a theme that was for all of your sites, you could have a custom theme that's there and enforce that upon your editors, so that they don't have any control over the theme. You can also enable and disable different features, different content types, and this is back to the permissions shenanigans that Heath was just.
Yeah, so they're all actually installed on the base install. All the modules are there, and that was the convenient thing about having built the whole original project out of just modules, because we can just add those modules into the microsites one, which is a completely different project. And then to enable and disable them is I just remove the permissions completely from that domain, so you can't see any of the content, you can't see anything, just all the permissions for that particular module are gone.
So this site doesn't have anything enabled, it's just got the page content type, which has the layout paragraphs for building out your promotional pages. But we'll come back to that in a minute. I've got some other microsites up, one that shows events, shows directories, etc. But the site design is perhaps the interesting portion where, Mark Conway, formerly of Anasec, was behind most of this, but with lots of help from Maria, and Agile Collective, and lots of front end whizzes.
And the suggestion from the previous session about using CSS variables,
Yeah.
that's what's happening here. So it's not like colour module, it is just CSS variables in the underlying.
So let's, we can't see what we're doing, but we're changing lots of colours and of different fonts, which will get converted into the CSS variable, and I'm sure it will look delightful. Base font size, let's go a bit bigger. Baseline height. Getting scary now.
What?
Let's save that and see what it looks like. So obviously this is, dangerous for people.
Yeah, I won't be taking your application any further.
Because the flexibility is there. That's what's important. So like if you've got some design maps and some accessibility respect, then you can create something that would be suitable. Wow, that is truly. I haven't seen the menu now. What's the menu? So actually, one little feature that's built into this is a little accessibility helper, which is just down in the bottom right-hand corner, called Sally. It's based on an open source library called Sally. So there's a LocalGov Sally module that integrates it here. And the idea is it's like a sort of in-page scanner for issues. And so it spotted that we've got some alt text for our pictures, which is good, but it spotted there's a problem here with the consecutive headings. So you can give content editors and or point and click site designers, I'm not sure what you call it, designers, hints on accessibility issues. So we could just go and fix that. I won't bother because it's just changing a heading, but then that will go away. So that's just another nice little thing that well, I guess it's an important thing if you're going to give people the power to point and click their way to hideous, inaccessible sites, then some kind of like encouraging them to look at that and look at what's wrong and why it's wrong and educate themselves about accessibility is a good thing. So, just actually while we're on this, maybe I'll...
Can you ask questions as we go along?
Yeah, please do. I'm just going to reset it.
Yeah, we're well into our time at this point.
So what you've mentioned is as Drupal's progressed, you've changed and adapted. Okay. How do you think things are going to happen when Experience Builder comes along?
I'm glad you asked that. Because what I've just done is enabled a couple of things which we're already kind of trialling. One is on the look and feel. This is a recent addition by Mark Conway, which basically allows you to edit all the same things that we just saw, but in in the front end basically. So let's go and have maybe we can change the header colour. There we go. And so you can start to see what you've got. So you can hopefully realise that there's a shocking contrast in real time. And probably change the size as well. Except everything's really big over there. That stuff needs to not respond to this stuff, isn't it? So maybe let's hit the font size back down again. So yeah, immediately you'll start to see, obviously improvements to be made, but like you're starting to have a much more instant feedback on the colours, and hopefully you can point and click your way to a better looking site quicker. Hopefully with having the help of Sally as well to point out contrast issues and that kind of stuff. So this is not related to Experience Builder, other than that it's the same kind of idea that people want to be editing directly and seeing what they get in real time. So when Reece did his demonstration of Experience Builder in Barcelona, in his recent note, I was like, yeah, this is obviously the way. I'm glad that things are going in the Drupal community the same kind of way that we're kind of going here, because there's obviously the same kind of needs, the same kind of target audience, I guess, people who don't necessarily have developer skills or technical skills, but they've got skills, they've got creativity, and to be able to harness that and give them the tools and the feedback that they need to create a site without the techies that they don't have access to. So I think we're going on the right lines with this. It may well be that, I mean, Experience Builder is all built in React, right? I think that's Reactifying the admin UI essentially. So yeah, I don't know whether we flip to that at some point or align. I think this is settings tray, is it? That's the Drupal core thing now. So you can expose any configuration settings in this tray. The other thing is Mercury Editor, which is for. Do I need to say that? So that's for the design. But if we now edit the.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
before you move on, just a question. The one you showed changing the font sizes. Can you change it depending on the screen size?
I don't know. I think these are default styles, and I think there's other responsive styles that would adapt those styles based on the.
The good thing about this is because it gives some element of control over what can be done.
Yeah.
So it provides a uniformity within local government that they can, the guys using it know what it is, what it can do, and they can all share that information. So that's a good thing for us.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not sure if there's any specific.
I think it is designed in.
Just has to be responsive in general, but like I think once you've set your base size, I think that's probably I don't know. It's on this answer. Worth having a look.
I think the base theme will have is dividing variables and changing things, and I think that's not configurable in the front end except possibly for a couple of things. But there would be nothing to stop you. Yeah, adding a variable for the multiplier.
Yeah, indeed. It'd be interesting. We can talk to Mark about that. So just move on rapidly. Do interrupt with questions. Mercury Editor does something similar for layout paragraphs, allowing the person who's editing the content to see the content and start editing it in real time, seeing the updates. I think if this works, like sort of just clicking, that's the layout. That one. These icons are always like this. You just click into it and you're now editing, that text and see some there. So yeah, again, much more sort of instant feedback. Well, you can't actually see the editing on that. And I think you can even like sort of drag and drop sections around to try different ordering of things and play around with paragraphs. And once you're happy with that,
And that's editing a live page.
that's editing live page, and you save and you're done, and then you've got your layout and your things down there. So again, editing it in the front end, which is kind of contrary to what our research suggested content designers want, but then when they've seen this, they go, that's great. That's what we want. So that's kind of coming, but we need to sort of work out what doesn't stabilise it. But again, if that's something you could turn on or off on your site, maybe even per microsite. Just have a little toggle on that thing. So this microsite does it this way, this one does it that way, depending on what the content designers want.
Do you have a WordPress mode so you can use the WordPress tools? I've had that request from the United Nations when they had multiple things. The team wanted we were migrating to Drupal, but the team wanted the editor facilities to stay the same as WordPress.
Interesting. WordPress theme for Drupal.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I'm a bit interested in looking at the generated HTML, like if it's lightweight or complicated.
Looking at the HTML?
Yes, I mean, since it's a page builder, like, does it get bulky, the HTML?
No, I'm in debug mode, so it's not going to help. So the HTML that comes from like layout paragraphs, I think is the same kind of HTML that will come from layout builder. So the layouts are just relatively structured
Yeah.
divs, and then
Not too bad.
paragraphs of things inside it which we're sort of controlling the base theme.
So yeah, you can, the layout, there really are layout builder plugins that you just put into paragraphs.
Yeah.
So we've got this, this LocalGov base. Sorry, that's not the one. I'm in the wrong. Oh no, LocalGov microsite base, which inherits from LocalGov base. LocalGov Drupal uses LocalGov base as the base theme for and so it inherits from that. But then, it does a bunch of stuff with the CSS variables to allow all of those parameters to be squirted into the CSS variables in the body, and then inherit all of that through the cascade. In terms of templates, I don't know. Oh, this isn't going to be where I use it. I mean, they're just three templates. I think they're all pretty straightforward and in terms of them, the HTML that generates. Maybe if you look at demo.microsites. What is it, site 1?
Yeah.
So there's some live demos out there. Let's see if we can. I don't think the resolution is quite. So these layout sections, fields, divs, it's all relatively key. I mean, there's a lot of divs, but there's going to be a lot of divs. I guess. But, I'm probably telling that front end. But any other questions around that? Around the HTML? What were the other things we were going to briefly look at? Oh yeah, just a quick look. A couple of other demo sites. So we mentioned events. This is like an event listing. It's got that's my birthday actually. 17th of October. 2 days. If anyone's it did have a few more events on it, but again, that's a simple enough thing. Events listings. Lots of people want a microsite with events on it, and so you can enable a microsite with just events and the basic page to allow people to do that. A nice little thing that was developed, I think, there's a day tomorrow, this week, next week, little day filter, which is a really simple thing, but it's just like, actually, that's what people want. They don't want to click one day and work out what day is it, they just want to know what's on tomorrow or what's on this week. And so that's a nice little thing that lots of people like. That was you, now, wasn't it? No? No, you're not going to take credit for that. I'm sure it was you. Anyway, another little one, this was for like Barcelona, attractions in Barcelona. It's a directory of places. Again, relatively straightforward, but you can have a microsite with all your places and facets, of which this is generally interesting because these facets are not like config facets, they're not like taxonomy terms or whatever, they're like a content facet type that he spent a lot of time developing so that content editors can create new types of categories and new facets within those categories, new terms or whatever, which doesn't get blown away by config export import. So again, empowering it to be more like content, which is nice.
And not only that, they don't have to place the block on the page, it automatically ends up on the page, and when they edit the directory, they can say what facets are, or what facet types are available, and then when they go to the form and they say that it's in this particular channel, they then get automatically the facets that are available in that channel. And if they put it in 2 channels, they get the facets that are available in the 2 channels. And when it gets displayed, it only shows the facets from the channel. But the main thing was they wanted to be able, the user story was, there are basically 2 completely separate user stories. One of them is, we need full control over the taxonomy, and we need to lock it down. Okay, then use taxonomy, use terms, don't give people permission to do anything with them. And the other one was, we want the content editors to create them on the fly, and we don't want it messing up our config, and we don't want them adding blocks and changing anything. We just want them to appear.
Yeah.
Okay. and they're two completely different user stories, and you don't see them on the same directory. So you want it locked down, the taxonomy has been fixed, or we're putting new stuff in and we need to change things and swap them around.
That's an interesting, it's an interesting story.
And this is also in LocalGov Drupal directories, not, it's not microsite specific, but
Yeah.
it's a nice little thing. So as an admin, I've just gone in and edited the directory facets, created a new facet type of time, and then within time added two facets, terms, early and late. And so now if I go back to create a piece of content, add a directory venue, which is just something with a place, and go to channels and facets, and once I choose my channel, I've only got one channel here, attractions, you might have multiple different directories, as Peter just said. Once you choose that, then you've got the types here. You don't have the one I just created, because it's not yet available. That's interesting. And then if you go back to the actual directory channel, which is like the directory, the parent of it, this is where you've got your enabled facets there on the directory. So once I add time to it, and go back to maybe it's not this one. Go back to channels and facet. Now we've got time on that individual piece of content. So anyway, not microsite specific, but again, a useful bit of. Not sure why that happened. Is that
Form action, that looks like it should be JavaScript response, not
it seems to work, doesn't it? So that's a kind of directories type content. There's one for like a simple web form, contact forms. You can need contact forms. Web form, we have to do some stuff. But the web form is not actually group content, so there's one web form that can be deployed to lots of different websites,
again.
But the results, the submissions, are group content, so they're just in each site.
Again, there's multiple user stories on that one, including we want the web forms to be created only in the microsite. We want to be able to share the web form across all the microsites, and given the data protection things, there's a whole raft of stuff for that. But group will also lock in config entities to a group. So when it says you can put an entity into a group, it means any entity, including a config entity. So web forms, but also just any of the config of the site. You can actually then say, no, we're going to add this to the group, and it's only specific to the group, which is pretty handy.
If you've got web form submissions across all these different microsites, is that and those web form submissions are being stored in the database, is that harder to then sanitize as you're pulling that down from production to other environments, or is it as easy as if there's just one instance of web form?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, quite often actually the desire of those ones is actually not to store them in the database or to automatically sanitize it. There's a whole, this is where things start getting really complicated.
So yeah, the time being it's out of the box is quite simple, just for contact form, but yeah, there are multiple user stories we need to respond to. And as more councils start using web forms to plug into other systems and like put API calls to other systems they use, the CRMs and the rest of it starts off whole kind of like transactional journeys, then yeah, it's going to get interesting. But powerful, yeah, good problem to have. And then there's just a little news, some people just on a little news site. That's all that's so big. But one interesting thing that's happening through discussions at the moment is people going, oh, this news thing with the facets and listings, and this directory with the facets and the listings, and the events with the listings and the facets and the data thing, like, they're all kind of the same, aren't they? And so we're looking at now refactoring all of that into something called
Finder?
Finders,
yeah.
which is a term coming from central government, I think, because they've noticed the same kind of patterns and they've got lots of GDS guidelines for how best to do this, backed up with evidence-based design decisions. And so, because they do it all in slightly different ways, but the way the directories facet thing does it is kind of cool, and they want that on the other things. So we want to now abstract it and then use the same.
The magic is it auto-wires a lot of the config, it auto-wires the search API index, it adds in the facet. It does all of that when you just click a button and say, I want to add this channel. And so more people want that kind of stuff. We're up an hour, so we should be winding up.
So, slides was there?
No, the next slide should be after that one.
I'm just thinking we've got a train, we need to get back to Cambridge, and we've got a train coming, and we've got to get back to King's Cross.
Anyway, we're done. The next slide was the thank you one, or questions and then thank you. So.
I'm just wondering if you've had to deal with some parts of the site slowing down, because there's this, you know, all the modules are still enabled, but they're only disabled through the permissions, stuff like that.
Yeah, so primarily that's fine because it also then doesn't make the queries that are related to them, so the code just doesn't happen. So not a secret, those maps, if you're using the database backend, will load every single entity on the map. And so if you've got thousands of points, it will load thousands of entities. Then your website will slow down. I have a solution to this. Even with the database backend, I will be implementing it.
But also, once you get up to those kind of levels, then you might want to be looking at Apache Solr or Elasticsearch or some other database backend some other search index to speed things up.
But yeah, it's avoiding the entity load on those maps is a big one.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to see that myself.
Great, thank you very much.
Is that design system fit into like, does that provide all the components you are using? That design system, hence and design.
Yeah, so that is the government design system, and yeah, it's very good to look at. It's very much that look of accessible feeling. So, like when you saw the facets with the big checkboxes, government design system.
Is it doing based or like?
Well, we've just taken the patterns and re-implemented them in Drupal into it.
But these are evidence-based design decisions that have got, research in the public sector, and therefore they're good to go. They're not necessarily unchallengeable, but they're like, we don't need to go and reinvent that wheel. We can just use this and then look at improving it. It's a start guide.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much. For those of you who don't need to get back to Cambridge, we're all heading over to the pub in the next few minutes, so we can chat some more there.